to keep this structured,
right,
I'm going to use some slides. I think it makes it possible for me to pack in as much as I can pack in the 10 minutes, which I think is grossly inadequate, but I'll do my best. So if you can shift to the screen. What we are looking at is our modeling of the GoldBod Bank of Ghana strategy. And you are seeing one slide because I was told I wasn't supposed to do a very long, detailed thing. So it's very few slides just to raise some key issues. We have to bear in mind that the gold that is purchased is not purchased with air. Every economic asset has real cost. So when we say, oh, the Bank of Ghana has gone and bought gold, sold it for dollars, and then the dollars have been brought into the economy, we need to take into account all the costs in the entire cycle. It's then that we begin to realize that there are real costs. It started from, first of all, understanding that there are two legs of the Gold for Reserves program, or more or less the DGDP in general. One leg of it requires the Bank of Ghana to take money from the commercial banks, use that money that they've taken for the commercial banks to buy the gold or through the aggregator, get the dollars back through the system eventually, and then give the dollars to the banks. Now, if you look at that leg alone, the possibility of a shortfall is apparent. If they take some money from the banks, 100 billion, at an interest rate that assumes that they're going to bring back $10 million. I'm just making these numbers up. Or $100 million up. And then that $100 million, because of these things we are talking about, purity issues, whatever, if they end up bringing $95 million to the banks, that will not be possible. They have to take $5 million from somewhere and add it to it and give it to the banks so that the banks have the $100 million. That already tells you that they can actually lose money in dollars too on that cycle. Simply because, as far as the banks are concerned, they gave Cedis to the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana has gone through the cycle of the program, and through that mechanism of going back to the cycle, there is a loss. And therefore, the Bank of Ghana must supplement. So that's one leg. The second leg is where the Bank of Ghana somehow creates money. Now, there's a distinction, as we've been told in the literature and elsewhere, and I think it's also come up in recent conversations, that there's a difference between using high-powered money and not using high-powered money. We don't want to go into that complication, even though we have a fully fledged economist on the table. Not all of us are fully fledged economists. So on the matter that we have at stake, if the Bank of Ghana uses money other than taking it from the banks, they are increasing the money supply. Except, and this is very important, except somehow it has other borrowing in cedis that it's not been disclosed to us. But if they use money creation mechanisms anyway, credit, some credit account or whatever situation, they have to do sterilization. Sterilization simply means that increasing the money supply has an inflationary dynamic. It can affect inflation. And therefore, you have an interest to mop up some of that money out of the banking system or in the monetary supply system. If you're going to do that, usually, and there are other ways, but I'm going to focus on the main approach, you have to use open market operations, OMO, and one of those mechanisms is obviously the bills, where the Bank of Ghana sells bills in order to try and mop out some of the excess liquidity to maintain a certain inflationary targeting approach. Now, if it does that, then the cost of how much it raised in those bills, the OMO bills, have to be taken into account, which is why the price of gold then becomes very critical. So you see that where we have situations where the spread is where it is today, which I think is 14%, but if you take an average over the period that this was going on, maybe about 20%, we need to account for that cost also because it goes to the balance sheet of the Bank of Ghana directly in doing this. So that sterilization cost often we ignore, but that's an important element. The third element is that if the price of gold then starts to fall, then the Bank of Ghana, which has a commitment to support the currency, because even though we say we are doing a managed float system, increasingly looks as we are doing a managed peg system, because the Bank of Ghana refuses to allow the dollar to move beyond a certain range before it intervenes. How do we know that? We know that because it has tripled its level of intervention. In 2024, we spent about $3.3 billion doing market interventions on the FX side. This year, they themselves have told us they've done 10 billion, and that was before the end of the year. So let's say it's 10.5 billion or 11 billion or whatever. That's a significant increase, almost 3 times what we did in 2024. That establishes a commitment to keep the currency within a certain range. If you do that, then the gold price fall. What then happens is that you need to escalate that commitment by finding even more cedis, finding even more dollars with your limited resource, because then the gold price has, let's say, halved to go and close the cycle. So that escalation in terms of commitment to bring, to continue to support the currency at that level of dollar intervention means that if the gold price falls, your ability to then sterilize, the price of your sterilization also goes up. Because now you are using more CDs to get less gold.
You say a significant drop in the price of gold will hit the program very hard.
Yes.
But then again, the entire export channel will implode anyway.
Yes, what I was trying to explain is that, and maybe they can go to the next slide on the screen. What I was trying to explain is that the situations are not symmetrical. It's not as if, you know, the dollar price goes down, the gold price goes down, automatically our price on the buying side also goes down, and then because there are timing issues involved and the rest of it, there are pre-commitments you've made to off-takers, there are all these timing problems. So that's something we should note. So it's not as if that is a symmetrical balance. The second thing we should note is that it affects our other exports as well as channels. It's not just the GoldBod channel. It also affects the large-scale miners. So right now we assume that the GoldBod is the only reason the Bank of Ghana has the resources to intervene. It's not the only reason. Gold price have increased by almost double. So the large-scale mining sector and the surrender requirements, as well as their repatriation requirements, have also increased. So the Bank of Ghana is getting more gold also from the large-scale sector. The Bank of Ghana is getting more gold from its own aggregator arrangements that it had before this GoldBod thing was coming in. But the money was smaller. In the absence of GoldBod and the module they are using, all these benefits in the gold market would have lost it. Okay, so that's the next point that I'm going to go into. So having established, though, that there's economic costs, real costs in terms of the side. You remember that the year... having established that the year in which there was a ban on artisanal gold mining. That was the year it was reported we had the most exports. True. And the government completely had no idea how that export was done, right? So let's go back to this. And now they can put this back on the screen. It's been one of the biggest problems in terms of debate, which is why I have a challenge with this very short time you are giving me. There is this belief that somehow all the Cedi stability issues, we should give it to GoldBod. The only reason why the Cedi is stable in this country is GoldBod. So when you look at his analysis of the benefits, he assumes 100% attribution to GoldBod. So when he says import bill has dropped, all of that is GoldBod. When he says the cost of servicing debt has dropped, all of it is GoldBod. That cannot be possible. Then we should stop the highway program. We should not bother with the highway program since they started GoldBod. Because then when I read the statements they put out, they say it differently. They don't. No, I'm saying that this attribution 100%. Very good. Of what you are saying to themselves. An analysis right now was suggesting as if all those benefits, we should calculate it off so cost at 240 million, but there are benefits of this number, and he was not disaggregating. How much of it should we give to the fiscal consolidation program? The fact that my very good friend Honorable Atufo is not spending as much as he should because of arrests keep piling up still. How much, and that is obviously have an effect in terms of stabilizing the currency because of the inflationary channel. How much should we give to the fact that we did a domestic debt restructuring program, and therefore our debt servicing cost by itself, because you give people haircuts, so you're not paying as much. How much we attribute to that? You just saw the very good, the very honorable gentleman suggest that our debt servicing cost, our debt to GDP, all those benefits are somehow GoldBod benefits. Forgetting that we did give haircut to people around this country to reduce how much the government owes people and to reduce how much the government uses to service. You remember that game? How much we attribute to that? You remember very much that. Please go back. No, give me time. Remember that we've created a set of situations in this country where we've been shut out from the international capital market. So our ability to borrow internationally has been constrained. Yeah. How much we attribute to that in terms of the reduction, in terms of the accumulation of debt? There are so many contributory factors. On exchange rate alone, there is a group called Consensus Economics that does a worldwide survey of economists. And they each indicate which of the matters that they consider important for the exchange rate in their own country. I have counted 15 priority channels beyond reserves. So to argue that because reserves capacity has increased through GoldBod intervention, that reserve capacity alone for interventions is the only way the exchange rate will improve. It doesn't make sense because we've always had interventions, and then sometimes they are not, the resources are not sufficient because the amount of gold dollars was not enough. In this case, the price of gold has increased. So the price of gold increase itself must be accounted for as part of calculating the reserve intervention capacity issue. Okay. And that's one issue. But then there are other contributing factors beyond the central bank's ability to intervene. And those matters, we have not discussed them at all. Yes, so we are in an IMF program where we have multiple structural benchmarks, multiple quantitative performance benchmarks, etc. Why are those benchmarks there if they were not important in establishing restoration? Why do we do a ECF program for that restoration? The question that we have for you is very simple. If we had a situation where those other things were not being done, will merely doing GoldBod alone lead you to the outcome that we have today? No. If that is the correct answer, then the question becomes, how much of this should we attribute to GoldBod? When we did our analysis, we came to a conclusion at that time that was about 3 percentage points out of the 20-something percentage point that at that time. Now it's gone further because it dropped again at the end of the year. So let's say it's a 30% or 32% improvement in the currency. What many percentage points of that must go to GoldBod when you consider all the factors that also affect the exchange rate? Right? So you need to disaggregate and to say that GoldBod cannot be responsible for the entire benefit spectrum.
Right.
And which of the spectrum? Last point, which is important. If we don't pay attention to the so-called losses, and if, as I've tried to explain to you, they are real losses, as in somebody actually bought gold at a certain price and realized a certain price, and we give money to GoldBod, $279 million, and we say go and use it as a working capital. At what point does the erosion of that working capital in the revolving fund leads to GoldBod having to buy less gold? Because every time you cycle it around, you lose some money.
That's not the model.
What is not the model?
So
I'm saying that
wait, he's ending. I need him to land. Yeah.
The revolving fund is the next stage.
Right.
It's the next stage because the Bank of the Ministry of Finance.
But we are here today.
That doesn't make sense.
Right.
I'm saying that.
Right. Bottom line, this GoldBod gold purchase approach, it's not sound. It's not good.
No, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm saying that. No, it can't be binary like that. Is it good or is it not good? I'm saying that there has to be management principles which account for risk, and the number one is transparency. We need to know everyone you are buying the gold from and how much you bought from them when. That's one on the buying side. Who bought the gold, when, and how much that is. And so that when we are computing any potential losses and the likes of it, we know that none of it is manipulation.
All right.
We don't want a situation where you deliberately undersell by claiming, for instance, if the purity was 91% door. You have a systemic mechanism that then declares it to be 90%, and then on the back end of it, you reconcile.
So actually, your issue has been that this is not efficient.
It's not efficient to the extent that you cannot continue to aggregate the kind of loss we are talking about, which is why he admits himself that they need to improve that efficiency, especially when they start to trade on their own balance sheet.
Right.
The second issue is that the transparency is needed to avoid potential manipulation. Because every time you have discounts and premium, and those discounts and premium are not market determined,
so what you are doing is proposing ways in which they have already said they are in the process of ensuring that they reduce or terminate that situation.
They have made an admission that the system can be improved to reduce these losses.
Or we call it cost.
Well, whatever you call it. You cannot, on one hand, then argue that those costs are insignificant. Right. If you yourself admit that once you start trading on your own balance sheet, you must optimize.
So your point is
our argument is very simple.
They are able to come to that point.
Yes,
that's where you want them to get.
It's 2 issues, very simple issues. One, full transparency in the entire value chain end to end, so that any kind of potential loss linked to premium or discounts is transparent, so that we know it's not the result of manipulation.
Right.
That's number one.
There's transparency, but it's not adequate for you.
Yes, we have some transparency, and we commend him for that.
Which we never had.
But we absolutely will want more because of the risk level. So number two is very important. There are two. I said two. Number two, the efficiency of the trading requires competition across all levels.
Thank you.
The current model where one super aggregator gets money for free, and other aggregators who are so-called self-finance aggregators must go and borrow at the commercial rate and compete with them. That model is inherently problematic.
They should go and get the aggregator license.
Kabiru. And then we don't have aggregator license as well.
It's important.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Don't write too much.